Chapter 191 Buying him a gift. Seeing that the securities were more than serious in preventing her entry, Mia knew it was time to leave. The last thing she wanted was to bring more attention to herself by staying and trying to reason with the guards. She didn't need a second warning to grasp that they were refusing her access due to her choice to support Neil over being with Owen, whose company was a major investor in the malls of Mirage Mesa. Owen's influence in the state ran deeper than most realized, leading her to question how he had gained such wealth and power in just 5 years. Meanwhile, Rain was growing increasingly frustrated as the men blocked Mia's path. She had been looking forward to this day, only for these men to deny her friend entry? That was unacceptable to her. Rain was about to confront the security guards again by threatening them with her family's influence, when she felt Mia's gentle touch preventing her from taking any action and causing a bigger scene, especially with the onlookers recording the situation on their phones. "Let's go, there are plenty of other shopping options in Mirage Mesa," Mia suggested as she guided her friend, who was glaring at the men, back to the car. The Velvet Labyrinth wasn't the sole mall in the city. They visited another mall, less fancy than the first but still offering high-end dresses. This time, the security did not stop her from entering, but the patrons in the mall didn't fail to surprise her by pointing fingers at her yet again and whispering among themselves. "Rain," Mia said softly, "am I the only one who's noticing people are staring at me more than they should?" Rain looked around and noticed it for the second time. She'd thought people were staring at Mia at the first mall because of the securities who'd refused her entrance, but it seemed that wasn't the case here. They were staring for another reason. "Perhaps they are staring at you because of the rumors. You've gone viral after that press conference, everyone's talking. Just ignore them as long as they don't approach us and say shit." Mia ignored them and focused on other things, but despite her efforts to ignore them, she couldn't help but overhear some of their whispered words as she passed by a group of women standing by a boutique. "I can't believe she still has the guts to show her face here after what she's done. Tisk, such level of shamelessness should be rewarded. If I were her, I'd never show my face in public again. I'd get plastic surgery done and change my appearance and identity, because moving to another country would never help after such disgraceful act. Disgusting. She's an embarrassment to womanhood." Another person whispered, but due to the silence that had fallen in the mall after her appearance, Mia heard them clearly but pretended like she didn't. How was breaking up with someone an act of shamelessness? And how was standing up to bring justice to her Neil an act of disgust? Elite ladies, Mia thought in disbelief, at times could be insensitive when they'd run out of drama to gossip about and someone to bully. "Who are you calling an embarrassment to womanhood?" Rain demanded, about to confront them, but Mia was quick to pull her back and away from the women who knew nothing but gossip. "They are not worth our time, let's go." Only then did Rain let them off and allow Mia to pull her away while she glared at the women who looked about to flee as they'd heard words about the Wallace household daughter being a skilled martial arts fighter. The last thing they'd want was to get beaten by her, thus they hurried away under her flame green eyes that shot daggers at them even though she was being pulled away by the friend who they'd been insulting. As they wandered through the mall, Mia's eyes scanned the array of high-end stores and designer boutiques, pushing aside everything else that might ruin her day out. They wandered off to the quieter side of the mall where the atmosphere was grand, with marble floors gleaming under the soft golden lighting. Luxurious displays adorned with the latest fashion trends lined the walkways, drawing in shoppers with their allure. As they continued their exploration, she caught glimpses of women browse through the racks of designer dresses and expensive accessories. Despite the attention she received upon entering the mall, Mia remained composed, her determination firm as she concentrated on her mission to find the ideal gifts for Neil and a stunning dress to wear for Rain's father's birthday party in 2 weeks. Mia noticed a men's boutique across the way, with a display of male attire and suits visible through the window. Her eyes lit up immediately, ready to suggest they check it out first to Rain, when Rain's phone suddenly rang. She quickly answered, her expression lighting up as she spoke into the receiver. "Hey, Max? Yeah, we're at the mall. Mia and I are just browse around. We haven't found a dress yet," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "Oh, you're already here? That's perfect. We're on the other side. Meet us near the fountain." Mia watched as Rain's eyes sparkled with anticipation as she spoke to her boyfriend. Rain had informed her about Max joining them in the mall an hour ago when they left the first mall, but Mia had thought he had changed his mind. It seemed he hadn't. He'd finally made time to shop with her after a long time of giving her excuses of why he couldn't go with her to the mall. After ending the call, Rain turned to Mia with a wide smile. "Max is already here. He's waiting for us near the fountain," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. Mia hesitated for a moment. She couldn't go with Rain to the other side when she'd already seen what she wanted in this boutique. Besides, she wouldn't want to be a third wheel between them, not to mention her dislike towards Max made her even more reluctant to join them. "I think I'll pass," she replied politely, her tone gentle. "I'd rather continue shopping on this side of the mall where there's less crowd." "Go have fun with him. I'll be fine." Rain nodded understandingly as she thought Mia was avoiding the attention. "All right, you do your thing," she said, reaching out to give her friend a warm hug. "Just give me a call once you're done, and we can meet up to show each other what we've picked." Mia returned the hug, a sense of gratitude washing over her for having such a supportive friend. "Thanks, Rain. I appreciate it," she said sincerely, her voice soft but genuine. "Have fun with Max, okay? I'll catch up with you later." With a final wave, Rain hurried off towards the fountain, her steps filled with excitement. As Mia watched her friend disappear into the crowd, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of loneliness wash over her. However, she quickly pushed aside her emotions and turned her attention back to her shopping, determined to make the most of her time alone. She walked into the men's boutique, and immediately her eyes fell on a display of diamonds cuff gleaming under the golden light. One in particular caught her eyes, and before she could think, she was already approaching it. It was an elegant cuff adorned with intricate designs and a single sparkling diamond that had a hint of gray and somewhat dark blue. The cuff seemed to shimmer under the soft mall lighting, casting a mesmerizing glow that captured Mia's attention and reminded her of Neil's eyes and his priceless, gleaming white smile. With a sense of certainty, Mia reached out to touch the cuff, her fingers grazing over its smooth surface. As she touched it, an image of Neil's face flashed to her mind, the sound of his voice, his deep laughter, his caresses, and his warm kiss. And in that moment, she knew that this was the perfect gift for him, a symbol of their enduring bond and shared memories. As Mia admired the cuff, one of the mall assistants approached her, a welcoming smile on her face. But upon recognizing who Mia was, the smile disappeared and was replaced by a strong disdain she wasn't supposed to show to customers. "And for the sake of being polite to their customers," she said. "Ma'am, that diamond cuff is crafted from one of the rarest diamonds on earth," she remarked, her tone tinged with impatience. "I'm not sure if it's within your budget. Perhaps you'd like to explore our other cuff collections. That one in your hand, especially, is way past your class." Undeterred by the assistant's rude remarks, Mia met her gaze with unwavering confidence. "I appreciate your concern, but I assure you, I know exactly what I'm looking for," she replied calmly, her voice carrying a sense of superiority. "I'll take the cuff and that blue tie." She pointed towards the blue tie showcased above the cuff that had also caught her attention. The assistant hesitated for a moment, seemingly taken aback by Mia's resolve, but she nodded and retrieved the cuff and tie for her. Even though she'd seen the videos of Mia Harrison that had been leaked trending online days ago, she couldn't show her dislike towards her in her workplace. However, that didn't mean she wasn't going to put the shameless woman in her place. Thus, when Mia wasn't looking, the assistant retrieved her phone and secretly took pictures of the cuff and tie along with Mia, before she proceeded to escort Mia to the counter while posting it online with the caption, "Mirage Mesa's whore has seemed to catch another man." Chapter 192, Fighting Over a Dress. As Mia completed her purchase in the men's boutique and asked for a special wrap to wrap up the gift, she couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction knowing that she had found the perfect gift for Neil. Even though it had cost her a fortune, she was still pleased with it. For the past 5 years, she'd been working as the main host of Talkwave Productions. She'd managed to gather a huge amount of wealth that would last her for 2 decades, even if she were to stop working, which she didn't plan on doing anytime soon but was just taking a break. Now that she'd gotten Neil a gift, she had one more thing to get, a beautiful dress suitable for the party. Though she'd turned down countless invitations after her return, she wasn't going to turn down this one, even if she were to be the center of attention at the party. People would talk and insult her, but they wouldn't do that forever. They'd soon get tired of her rumors and move on with their lives. With the cuff in hand, Mia continued her exploration of the mall, her heart filled with anticipation and contentment. After walking around the mall for a while, she came across a women's boutique with beautiful dresses that caught her eye. Though this boutique wasn't as quiet as the men's, there were few women browse through the high-brand dresses. However, Mia didn't turn away and walked in instead. She'd been turning away from crowded areas like some criminal. She wasn't going to do that this time around. She walked into the boutique, and to her delight, the women were too busy browse through their phones and dresses to notice her. Thus, she walked around the boutique to quickly grab what she wanted and pay. She didn't have to search for long before her eyes were drawn to a stunning dress displayed on a nearby mannequin. The dress was an exquisite creation, crafted from flowing silk chiffon in a vibrant shade of emerald green. Its bodice was adorned with intricate beading, while its flowing skirt cascaded elegantly to the floor, creating a vision of timeless beauty. Immediately captivated by the dress, Mia felt a surge of excitement coursing through her veins. It was as if the dress had been tailor-made for her, its vibrant hue and luxurious design speaking to her soul in a way that no other garment had before. In short, the dress was one of the most beautiful dresses she'd ever set eyes on. Determined to get a closer look, Mia began to approach the mannequin. However, as she reached out to touch the fabric, a sudden realization struck her. Mall rules prohibited customers from handling the merchandise without the assistance of a boutique assistant. Turning around to seek out an assistant, Mia scanned the boutique, but to her dismay, there was no one in sight. With a frustrated sigh, she resigned herself to waiting for assistance, as she knew they'd have seen her standing here through the CCTV cameras, her eyes still fixed on the mesmerizing dress before her. As Mia was contemplating to go and look for one of the assistants or wait for them to notice her, she suddenly heard the sounds of clicking heels and voices approaching from behind her. Turning around at the sound of the voices, thinking the assistants were coming to assist her, her anticipation was short-lived as she saw 3 women along with 2 boutique assistants, one of whom she recognized all too well, Elena Fanning, her relentless rival from the office who'd replaced her position as the main host. "Bring down the dress, I like it," Elena declared to the boutique assistant with a smirk, her tone dripping with arrogance as she laid claim to the garment which Mia had already set eyes on before her. Elena had seen Mia entering the boutique a while ago. She'd been surprised the woman had the guts to still walk around the city after what had been trending online about her, and because Elena couldn't allow this opportunity to pass by without her rubbing it in Mia's face, she'd decided to buy the dress. Before Mia could react, Elena's gaze turned towards her. Her voice cut through the air with mocking laughter. Well, look who's finally decided to walk into the lion's den," she sneered, her gaze locking onto Mia with a mixture of disdain and amusement. "Long time no see, Miss Harrison. I'm surprised you can still walk around after such intense activities you did last week. Tisk, I never knew you were such a whore. You should be a porn star rather than a show host." Mia hid her frustration and anger behind a smile as she tried not to look angry at Elena's words. Though she had no idea what activities Elena was referring to, she decided not to pay heed to her insults, as she knew the young woman would do anything to put Mia back in her place, like she'd always claimed. Mia sighed as she glanced at the other 2 women behind Elena who were looking at her like she was trash beneath their feet. She then said calmly, "Actually, Elena, I saw this dress first. I was just about to call for assistance to try it on." Elena's laughter echoed through the boutique, a cruel sound that grated on Mia's nerves like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, please," she scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "There's no way you saw this dress before me. Even if you did, you won't be able to afford it. You don't have a job anymore, remember?" She continued, "In case your manager failed to inform you, the company has decided to terminate your employment completely. And just so you're aware, the co-host position has been given to Claire. Isn't that right, Claire?" She turned to the young woman on her right, and Claire nodded with a smug grin. "Yes, Elena is correct. I was offered the position this morning, and your name has been removed. If you doubt us, you can check with your manager." Mia was momentarily stunned. She had received an email from her manager earlier that day but had forgotten to read it before Rain arrived to pick her up. Could it be that her manager had emailed her to notify her about? Initially, Mia tried to maintain her composure, but the anxiety became too much to bear, prompting her to want to check the email right now. She retrieved her phone and calmly read through the message, and to her dismay, she had indeed been dismissed from her job entirely. Not even the co-host position was available. The justification cited was the online videos trending about her, and the company wanted to disassociate from someone like her. Her manager even suggested that she should leave the country if she wished to start anew elsewhere. What videos? Apart from her press conference videos, she knew of no other videos. Mia thought as she felt her heart sink from the realization that she no longer had a job. Her hands shook, but she controlled her emotions, knowing the women before her were waiting and watching to see her break down. She'd always known Elena Fanning was jealous of her ever since she'd joined the company as the face of the entertainment industry, and now that she'd succeeded in taking her position, she'd do anything to step on her further. Thus, Mia tried not to show her hurt. "It's no big deal," Mia said. "I'll get another job in no time. You can shove it down your throat. What I know now is that I'm going to buy this dress because I saw it before you did." Elena scoffed. "You seem so full of yourself. You are a nobody now, and I'm certain you will soon return to the slums you emerged from. If I were you, I'd start saving the little money I have left. Oh, I forgot, you can always rely on selling what you have between your legs to make a living once you fall from grace. You don't belong with us anyway. I'll spare you the embarrassment, just leave them all and don't insist on dragging the dress with me." Mia refused to let Elena intimidate her, not when she had a dress to claim as her own. She'd intended to use Neil's black card to buy the dress before, but she'd had a change of heart after Elena's remarks. She realized that using a card with Xavier Galvera's name on it would only lead to being labeled as someone who relies on men for financial support. Retrieving her own card, Mia turned to the assistant and asked, "How much does the dress cost?" The assistant sneered at that question because from what she'd seen, Mia wouldn't be able to afford it, and she wasn't going to waste her time on someone as worthless as a whore. Thus, she turned to Elena and said, "There's only one of this dress in the world, and it was designed with rare materials. If you like it, you can try it on. It only costs $4 million. Elena's smug expression faltered. Though she had meant to buy the dress to rub it in Mia's face, hearing the price made her waver a bit. She had only $5 million in her account. Buying this dress would drain her account to $1 million. However, knowing that she'd get double that price now that she had taken Mia's position, she didn't hesitate to say, "I will buy it." Mia calmly stated, "Not while I'm here, Miss Fanning. It's either I purchase that dress or none of us will." If it had been someone else, Mia would have been willing to let go of the dress easily. However, knowing that Elena was only attempting to bring her down further by buying the dress, she was determined not to let that happen. Besides, she'd loved the dress at first sight. Elena approached the assistant and grabbed the dress from her, saying, "Let me see you try to take this dress." She then turned to her friends and instructed, "Girls, if she attempts to prevent me or interfere with the cashier, make sure she learns a lesson she won't soon forget, even if it means resorting to physical force." Chapter 193 The Bodyguards. Elena approached the assistant and grabbed the dress from her, saying, "Let me see you try to take this dress." She then turned to her friends and instructed, "Girls, if she attempts to prevent me or interfere with the cashier, make sure she learns a lesson she won't soon forget, even if it means resorting to physical force." Mia's hands balled into fists at her sides, her frustration boiling over as she noticed the two women standing to block her from reaching Elena, while the other shoppers and boutique assistants looked on in amusement without interfering. Some of them were even recording, while some were happy that Mia Harrison was finally being put in her rightful place. "Elena, I don't want to fight with you on this dress. Hand it to me and let's handle this like adults," Mia said calmly, silently praying that the bodyguards Neil had assigned to her were close by. She didn't want to fight physically for a dress when she knew her condition. Her doctor had warned her to be careful in her early stage of pregnancy because miscarriage was a common thing at this stage. The last thing she wanted was to lose her baby because of someone as petty as Elena Fanning. "I told you, if you want this dress, you'll have to fight for it." Elena clutched the dress to her chest with a smug look on her face. She'd been looking for an opportunity to be as famous as Mia, and what other way to get quick fame than creating a scene that would blow up online by fighting with the infamous Mirage Mesa's whore. A lot of people were already recording, and if she and her friends could beat up Mia, a lot of women who'd been disappointed in Mia after her trending videos would thank her online. Mia's clenched fists unclenched as she realized Elena was only looking for a fight. There were many more dresses in the boutique. She'd rather allow the fool to take this one than risk her unborn child for it. Deciding to just ignore them and walk away without a word, Mia turned on her heels to leave. But before she could take a step forward, one of the women stuck her foot forward and tripped Mia, sending her stumbling forward. Panic surged through her veins, her mind instantly worrying for her unborn child if she were to fall on her stomach on such a hard floor. Everything happened so quickly she couldn't stop herself from the fall. Just as she thought she'd hit the floor, a firm hand snatched her waist from behind, halting her descent with a strong grip. Her eyes squeezed shut in fear, a silent prayer escaping her lips. As Mia slowly opened her eyes, wondering who'd caught her, she found herself met with the sight of a figure cloaked in dark sunglasses, his stone-cold expression betraying no emotion. Hearing the crowds in the boutique gasp in shock, Mia looked towards the entrance and noticed 5 more imposing men in black suits silently stepped inside, their presence commanding attention. "We were sent to be around you by our boss. Are you all right?" The bodyguard's voice cut through the tension, concern lacing his words as he steadied Mia to stand up straight. They'd been specifically warned by their boss to protect the woman and her unborn child from any slightest harm. No doubt if she'd completed that fall, something would have gone wrong, and even though the bodyguard was a trained ex-soldier, he'd never felt so concerned for someone as he felt at this moment because he knew the consequences of the lady being harmed under their watchful eyes. Mia, on the other hand, understood immediately that the men were the bodyguards sent to her by Neil. Nodding weakly, she could feel dizziness clouding her senses, her body still reeling from the shock of the altercation. With a silent nod of gratitude, she moved away from the steadying hands of the head bodyguard and looked around at the other bodyguards circling her like a barrier. The men had been observing Mia from a distance as their boss had told them not to make their presence known unless she needed them, and from what they'd observed, they knew the other women were on to their lady boss because of a dress. Thus, the man who'd stopped Mia from falling wasted no time in addressing the situation. Without uttering a word, he strode towards Elena, his demeanor unwavering and commanding. Elena felt a shiver down her spine as the man towered over her in a way that made her feel like an insignificant ant standing before a giant man. She swallowed hard as he glanced at the dress she was clutching to her chest, and with a swift motion, he seized the dress from her grasp, almost breaking her pinky finger in the process, his actions leaving her stunned into silence and pain. Nobody dared to utter a word as they watched the men take over the boutique like they owned it. Not even the manager of the boutique who'd been watching the scene from the corner, enjoying Mia's misery like he was ordered to do, without interfering. Turning towards the cashier with purpose, the bodyguard retrieved a sleek black card emblazoned with the name, Xavier Galvera, in elegant gold lettering. With a deep, hoarse voice, he ordered, "Swipe the card and package the dress." As he instructed the cashier to complete the transaction, a hush fell over the boutique, the onlookers stunned into silence by the sudden turn of events. Though the onlookers couldn't see the name on the card, Elena, who was standing close by, saw it and her eyes almost bulged out of their sockets in disbelief. How on earth, was this whore acquainted with a mysterious CEO who hadn't shown himself to the world ever since he came to exist? First, she'd dated Owen Sullivan, then Neil Weiner, and now Xavier Galvera. With the transaction completed, the bodyguard retrieved the packaged dress and handed it to Mia with a respectful nod. Surrounding her protectively, the men formed a tight circle around her, guiding her safely out of the boutique as murmurs of astonishment followed in their wake. Elena could only watch in disbelief as Mia was ushered away, her plans for fame crumbling. But what she couldn't believe the most was how someone like Mia was able to have the attention of the most important men in their country. She wasn't even that beautiful, nor was she that intelligent. If she were intelligent, she wouldn't have been a porn star online. Someone like her should never be allowed to exist, nor be allowed to move around their social circle after the videos of her that were trending like wildfire in every social media. She was a bitch and a disgrace to women, and Elena would make sure she put her right where she belonged. As Mia stepped out of the mall with the guards blocking her from the view of the curious onlookers who were trying to peek to see who was the important figure being escorted by such imposing bodyguards, she felt relief wash over her. The men walked her to Rain's car where Rain wasn't back yet with Max, but because she had the car keys with her, Mia opened the car and stepped in to wait for her. As she sat inside the car, the head bodyguard who'd caught her from falling was about to close the door when she stopped him. "What's your name?" she asked, taking him by surprise, as bodyguards don't usually get asked of their names from the people they were meant to guard but their boss. He looked hesitant for a moment before he indifferently replied, "Zephyr." "Zephyr," she repeated to memorize the name. She then said, "Can you do me a favor?" He frowned upon that, but he nodded anyway. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't tell your boss about today's incident," she said, but the bodyguard didn't even think twice before saying, "I'm sorry, we were ordered to report every single thing that happens to you to him. You were also ordered to follow my orders, aren't you? She asked calmly, not wanting to appear as controlling. She didn't want Neil to worry about her even more after learning she was being treated differently in every mall and place she went to. He had his own problems to worry about. She didn't want to add to his burden when he was busy trying to do many things at the same time. She would rather let him come back as a free man before she'd worry him with her own problems, which weren't a big deal. Zephyr nodded his head. Yes, we were ordered to do anything you say, but we. Then I'm ordering you not to tell him about this incident today. If he asks you to report, tell him I went out shopping and nothing else. Do you understand? She asked, with her voice sounding a bit strict and firm. Zephyr only hesitated for a moment before he looked at his men, and they all nodded their heads in understanding to follow her order. Yes, ma'am, he agreed, not because of anything but because their boss had referred to her as my woman when he'd ordered them to keep her safe. Disrespecting her orders would be like disrespecting their big boss. Chapter 194 Fear. In the OSG company, known as the Owen Sullivan Group, where Owen was the CEO and owner for 3 years after working under Rodrigo Enterprise, Owen was seen lounged in the conference room, the air heavy with the scent of his success and arrogance. His tailored suit fit firmly against his lean, built muscles, but his tie was askew around his neck. Seated at the head of the polished mahogany table, he watched a video on his phone with a sinister smirk twisting his lips. It was the video of Mia being sent away from the Velvet Labyrinth under his order. An immense pleasure consumed him as he watched her disappointed look. Served her right for daring to break his trust and his heart, Owen thought, as he continued to watch the video of her entering the other mall while ignoring the fact that he was in a conference meeting and his board members were waiting for his approval on a deal. The board members, arranged around him like pawns awaiting orders, exchanged nervous glances as Owen continued to ignore their presence even after they'd repeatedly tried to gain his attention back on the screen. It was like they were non-existent in his eyes after he'd heard his phone beep, and seeing the twisted grin on his face, none of them dared to say a word. Owen's laughter rang out through the room, a chilling sound that echoed off the walls as he watched the scene where Mia was being surrounded by women who threatened to beat her up if she wanted to take the dress. Though he'd not asked anyone to beat her, if that would be enough for her to come running back to him, then he'd gladly stand and watch her get beaten. She was too stubborn to come to him willingly without something to push her, and this was just the beginning of her misery if she still refused to come to him. However, as the scene unfolded and men in black suits emerged from nowhere to protect Mia, Owen's amusement morphed into simmering rage. His fingers tightened around the phone, knuckles turning white with fury. "Mr. Sullivan, can we please resume the meeting?" One of the directors dared to interrupt at the moment he was trying to wonder who had dared send those men to protect his prey. Owen's blue eyes narrowed into slits, a dangerous glint sparking within them. Without thinking, he angrily hurled his phone towards the man who'd spoken, but the heavens were on the man's side as the phone narrowly missed hitting his eyes and hit the wall behind him instead, shattering into pieces. Owen slammed his fist onto the table. "All of you out," he barked, his voice a venomous snarl. The board members stumbled over themselves to comply, scrambling out of their seats in a desperate bid to escape Owen's wrath. As the door slammed shut behind them, Owen was left alone in the suffocating silence of the conference room, his mind already plotting his next move in his twisted game of manipulating Mia. "Eamon," he yelled the name of his assistant, who rushed into the office with speed. Owen held out his hand to Eamon, and the man quickly knew what he meant and placed a new phone on his palm, then stepped back. Owen turned on the phone while speaking to Eamon, who looked like he'd pass out from the pressure placed on him for the past few days in the OSG company as the CEO's assistant. Owen had been a very nice man until recently when his engagement was cut off by Mia Harrison. "Am I still on the list of guests for the Wallace party?" Eamon nodded his head quickly. "Yes, sir, but you said I should cancel it, which I'm about to." "Don't cancel it anymore," he interrupted, already thinking of his next way to attack Mia and make her submit to him on her own. "Accept the invitation. Call my designers and tell them to get to work designing my suit. I want to be the center of attention at the party. I want it done before 2 weeks." Eamon hurriedly got to work calling Owen's designers, while Owen sent a message to someone saying, "Prepare another video. I want it on display on the day of the party where everyone there would watch it. Make it more than believable." After sending the message, he sat back down on his chair, smiling to himself. He'd destroy her and yet be her protector. She wanted to be courted the hard way, then he'd court her the hard way. Now that he was more than certain that Neil Wayner would never come clean of the crimes he was accused of, and that Liam Thompson was doing nothing about it but going about his business, then there'd be no one else to protect Mia. As for those men in black suits, did she really believe she could hire bodyguards to shield her from his wrath? She was mistaken, as not even her useless father, the only powerful family she had left, would protect her now. You will come to love only me, my dear, as your entire life rests in my hands. I wonder why you can't love me instead of Wayner. I am more attractive and wealthier than him. But alas, you leave me no choice but to turn even your friend and her family against you. After the long day of their shopping, where Rain had ridden back in Max's car as they planned to go out on a date, and because Mia didn't want to be the third wheel between them, she'd taken Rain's car and drove back home. By the time she got home, the sky was already turning dark with the sun's glow fading into cool shades of blue and purple. The recent events left her both tired and sleepy, but she didn't allow herself to fall asleep. Instead, she decided to check the internet to see the videos of her that were trending online that had gotten people calling her bad names. However, as Mia sat down to begin looking through the internet, her phone decided to ring at that time, and automatically, she picked up the call even though it was an unknown caller. "Hello, darling," came the husky voice of Owen from the other side of the phone. As Mia heard Owen's voice slither through the phone, her skin prickled with unease, an involuntary shiver coursing down her spine. She gripped the phone tighter, fighting the urge to hurl it across the room and end him there. "Aren't you going to greet me?" he purred, his voice dripping with a sickening sweetness that made her stomach churn with disgust. Suppressing her revulsion, Mia replied indifferently, "What do you want, Owen?" But deep down, he'd imprinted a fear in her that made her shiver whenever she heard his voice, because it reminded her of his slap that brought back her childhood trauma of being hit by an unknown man. She tried her best to avoid him and even blocked all of his contacts, but he'd called her with an unknown number. Owen chuckled darkly, the sound sending a wave of dread washing over her. "Missed me, darling?" Mia's lip curled in disgust. "You're the last person on earth I'd miss," she retorted, "and if you know what's good for you, stop calling me." But Owen only laughed, his twisted amusement slicing through the air like a knife. "Or else what? Ha! Stop pretending, Mia. I know, and you also know, you love me," he taunted, each word like a dagger aimed at her heart. "Does Neil love you as much as I do? Don't be so naive. He's already used you up, discarded you like yesterday's trash. He'd never return to you even if he were to get free. Wayner is no one now. He's a good-for-nothing murderer and a bastard. I will give you this one last chance to come to me, and I'll forgive you of everything. I'll forgive you for breaking my heart and humiliating me in public." Mia clenched her fists, a surge of anger coursing through her. "If you ever open your filthy mouth to call my Neil a murderer again, I'll murder you myself. We have no relation anymore, Owen. I don't want your damn forgiveness. Don't you dare call me again." She spat, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. "And just so you know, I'd rather run into a moving train than run to you." Owen felt his heart twist sharply in his chest at her words. He'd called her to give her a chance to make him change his mind on his plan to destroy her image completely, but it seemed she'd not learned enough of a lesson. And because he didn't want her to have the last word, he spoke again before she could end the call. "Oh, Mia," he drawled. "I was invited to the Wallace birthday banquet. Got a date for the party? That son of a bitch is not here, and he'll never be here. Let me be your date. What color of dress are you?" Mia ended the call on him, her hands trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. Her heart sank at the thought that she'd have to be in the same hall with Owen if she were to go to the party, and her heart ached at the thought that her Neil wouldn't be here to be her date to the party. Deep down, she longed for Neil's comforting presence, and how much he made her feel protected. She wished he'd be back before then, but she knew that wish was impossible when she hadn't heard nor seen any news about his case yet. Subconsciously, she pressed her hand against her flat stomach and glanced down with a bitter smile. "I hope your father comes back soon. I miss him so much," she whispered softly, pushing away any depressing thought that might affect her in a bad way, and steeling herself against the ache in her heart. She wouldn't allow Owen or anyone to break her when she'd not even allowed her late mother's death to break her completely. She'd go to that party with her head held high and act like everything was normal, even though she could feel the thin thread between herself and her sanity slipping away slowly. Chapter 195: His Release. Days went by after the mall incident, and Mia had not heard from Neil in nearly a week, nor had she received any updates on his case. The growing difficulties she faced in the city led her to isolate herself further in her house, and the more time she spent indoors, the more she felt herself sinking into depression. She was forced to switch off her phone due to the threatening messages she was receiving from various unknown people claiming to be her fans who now wished for her demise. The threats were so severe that she constantly felt the need to watch her back, and for safety, she requested the bodyguards assigned to her to remain close to her residence. She had no idea that going on a press conference to speak up for Neil would cause her this much loss, but even if she knew, was it going to stop her from speaking up and supporting Neil? No, definitely it would never stop her. Nothing would stop her, not even when Neil had broken her heart then. And now that he'd confessed his feelings, she had no regrets whatsoever. She'd continue to stand by him even if the world would turn against her and make her the villain. Her main concern now was the upcoming banquet. The Wallace birthday banquet was just 4 days away, and although she had purchased a dress that she loved, she felt nervous about attending. She knew that there would be many celebrities and elites present on that day, whom she had easily mingled with in the past. However, now that her reputation was being tarnished, she feared they would look down on her and make her feel even worse. Before she became a part of the elite circle and celebrity world, she used to envy the lives of the wealthy. However, upon entering that world, she realized that there was nothing extraordinary about them. They thrived on gossip and rumors, often talking behind each other's backs to impress one another. She thought back to her first Met Gala event in New York City. It had been a mix of beauty and unpleasantness. Many of the celebrities from Mirage Mesa made sure to highlight her background and criticize her outfit, insinuating that it was obvious from her outfit she wasn't raised in money but had climbed up the social ladder with the murder case of Neil Weiner. However, the rest of the celebrities had been super nice to her, and knowing that the Wallace influence went deeper than most of the wealthy families, Mia was certain they'd invite many celebrities from their country. Nonetheless, she couldn't afford to miss it when Rain Wallace was her best friend and the host of the birthday party. She'd put all her efforts to make it perfect, and Mia couldn't miss it for the world. Mia sighed for the 100th time that day as she curled up on her couch trying to concentrate on the movie she'd been watching to keep herself from thinking unnecessary thoughts, but no matter how much she tried, the movie wasn't registering in her head. Thus, she picked up the remote and was about to turn off the TV and take a short afternoon nap when the house landline went off. Mia hurriedly scrambled to her feet to reach the phone, thinking it might be Neil calling since he was supposed to call yesterday but hadn't. She reached the phone before Sabrina, who'd rushed out of the kitchen to pick the call, and answered. Her anticipation to hear his deep voice was drowned away when Rain's panicked voice rang out. "Are you at home?" she asked, and before Mia could answer, Rain said, "Tell the men at your gates to let me in immediately." Mia heard the panic in her friend's voice and nearly fell when she hit a button on her wall to speak to the bodyguards outside to allow Rain in. She hadn't told them to stop anyone from entering, but it seemed Neil had, and so they were making certain no one would enter without her permission. "Let my friend in." When the bodyguards allowed Rain to pass through the gate after they'd heard Mia's words, she glared at them and slammed on her brakes, bringing her car to a screeching stop in front of Mia's house, cursing when her seatbelt got stuck. Leaving her purse in the car, she ran up the sidewalk, opened the front door without knocking as it wasn't locked, and walked into the living room where Mia was pacing about. "What's wrong?" Mia asked the moment Rain rushed into the room. "Turn on your television," she said breathlessly. "You need to watch the live stream of the courtroom." "Rain, what courtroom?" Mia said shakily, sensing that her friend's tense face and the way she was frantically searching for a particular television channel both had something to do with Neil's case. "Don't do this to me. Tell me what happened. It's Neil's case, isn't it? Is it bad?" Shaking her head, Rain stepped back from the television. "It's all over the news. Everyone is talking about Neil Weiner. They're interrupting the regular program to announce something about him. All I know is that he turned himself in yesterday. The news channel said they'd play the video footage of the courtroom at 5:30. She glanced at her watch. "That's right now. Oh my God. Why did he turn himself in?" Mia burst out in a cold sweat at the thought that Neil would be sent back to prison. Was that the reason why he didn't call her yesterday? Was he giving up already? "Don't start crying on me now. I think it's good news," Rain said with an anguished laugh. "Or it's bad, depending on how you take it. Mia, he's..." She broke off and pointed to the television as the announcer said they were interrupting their regularly scheduled programming for a special news bulletin. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen," said the news reporter on the television. 2 nights ago, a criminal was caught who confessed to framing Neil Weiner on the case 5 years ago. Some investigation was carried out, and our infamous General Weiner has been proven innocent yesterday morning. He was released of all charges and set a free man this morning. Without realizing it, Mia reached for Rain's hand, squeezing it in a death grip as the reporter continued to speak on the criminal who'd turned himself in, and when the man's face was flashed on the screen, Mia recognized him immediately. It was the same man she'd seen 5 years ago when she'd spied on the Doc Roll, the same man with a scar on his face. However, that wasn't her problem at the moment, but Neil. A moan of pleasure, of torment, and of crushing longing tore from Mia's chest as Neil's picture was flashed on the screen. She grabbed at the back of a chair with both hands to hold herself upright as the screen switched to the video footage of the gates of Novaria's prison where Neil had spent 5 years, and she saw Neil walking out, clad in a dark suit and tie with an indifferent expression, escorted through the falling snow to a waiting Rolls-Royce, while the reporter kept talking. Weiner left prison a free man, accompanied by his attorneys. Waiting for him in the Rolls-Royce was his longtime best friend, industrialist Liam Thompson, whose unswerving faith in Weiner's innocence has been no secret from the media or the authorities. Also standing on the sidelines was a young woman with a familiar face. Said the reporter, making Mia realize for the first time that a tall woman was standing behind the car where Neil was heading. Though her famous unique eyes weren't in evidence at this moment. But we all know her as Annalise Martinez, the supermodel from Verdansk. From the looks of the video footage of this morning, it's clear that there is something going on between the two as we realized Weiner has been staying in Verdansk for the past few months. "Well, no man can resist such a woman," he added with a laugh, "and by what we see, the world is supporting him with the model, saying he deserves the best after such injustice, as Miss Harrison has proven herself unworthy of his love by the videos of her trending." Mia was dumbstruck, and she watched the screen like a fool as Neil walked swiftly towards the back of the car where the woman, who was known worldwide for her unique beauty, stood under an umbrella, watching him with a smile on her face. For a moment Neil stood there, looking at her, then he slowly walked over to her. Tears raced down Mia's cheeks as she watched Neil pull Annalise Martinez into his arms. The hug only lasted for a second before he let her go, then he vanished into the black Rolls-Royce, which sped away while the reporter added, Mirage Mesa's reporters who'd discovered Weiner's release raced to the airport terminal in hopes of getting a statement from him. However, he left with Thompson on his private jet. Our reporter learned that his flight had landed this morning at Mirage Mesa in a 5-star hotel, although no one knew the exact hotel. Choking on her tears, Mia looked at Rain and said hoarsely, "I know Neil has nothing to do with that supermodel." "How did you know?" "From what I just watched, it seems that he was grateful to her for something," Mia said quickly. "Annalise Martinez. She is the older sister of Kai Martinez, his prison cellmate who'd helped him with his escape. She must have assisted him as well with some issues on her younger brother's request." Rain frowned. "Then why are you crying if you trust that he isn't cheating?"